Holy cow, the free agent market is just insane right now. Kevin Gausman signs with the Blue Jays. Max Scherzer today signs a 3-year deal for by far the highest average annual value the game has ever seen, over $40 million. And man, there was a lot of activity over the weekend. And of course, like I said, the Giants losing their ace in Kevin Gausman to the Blue Jays. So we'll talk about all that's going on and if the Giants are going to get in on this frenzy next on Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants Baseball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, now including YouTube. And coming up on today's show, my head is spinning. What we're going to talk about is all of the activity going on in Major League Baseball. It's pretty crazy. Last time we talked on Friday, I was saying, are we going to see a flurry of activity between then and the upcoming potential lockout, which would happen on Wednesday night at around midnight Eastern? And my thinking was that the holiday was behind us, Thanksgiving, and that deadline in front of us. And man, I couldn't have even predicted we would see the kind of activity that we have seen. We've seen just some of the top players in the game, at least the top free agents in the game, come off the board since then. Kevin Gausman has a new team. He's not going to return with the Giants. He signs a 5-year, $110 million deal with the Blue Jays. Max Scherzer, another guy who we considered a candidate for the Giants to sign, has signed a ridiculous 3-year, $130 million deal with the New York Mets, who are, behind owner Steve Cohen, just throwing money at their problems. And frankly, to me, that's a good strategy for them. Marcus Semien, another guy we have been talking about as a potential target for the Giants, signs a massive 7-year, $175 million contract with the Texas Rangers. Avisail Garcia, someone kind of a dark horse candidate that matches somewhat of the description of what the Giants were looking for in the outfield, signs a big $53 million 4-year deal with the Miami Marlins. And so my head is spinning. Like I said, I don't even necessarily know where to start. Let's talk about the starting pitcher market for a second, though. Kevin Gausman, always, of course, a candidate that we thought could return to the San Francisco Giants. He's gone. He's going to the Toronto Blue Jays, $110 million over 5 years. That pretty much matches up with what I expected from Kevin Gausman. In fact, I'm pretty sure at some point, whether it was here or on KNBR, I nailed those exact terms. And so good for him. It's a very nice deal. And I mean, when he first signed with the Giants, it was a 1-year, $9 million deal. And then last year, they gave him the qualifying offer, which was pegged at $18.9 million, and he accepted it. And so he's turned 2 1-year deals with the Giants into this massive $110 million payday. And Kevin Gausman, I just grew to really become a fan of him, and I'm sure a lot of Giants fans did as well. So I'm just happy for him at the end of the day. It's a good young team there in Toronto, but this is a Giants show, so we're going to talk about what this means for the San Francisco Giants. There are quite a few people who are somewhat freaking out over all of this activity and some of the, that doesn't really make sense. A lot of the top starting pitchers and just players in general coming off the board, the free agents, because the Giants have all this money potentially to spend, but they haven't really spent that much of it yet. But the fact is, they still have spent the sixth most of any team in baseball. We've got the Mets and Rangers just at a ridiculous first and second place here, around $250 million spent each. And then the Blue Jays at 121 million, Tigers at 77, Astros at 67, and Giants at 54.4 in sixth place. Not that it's a competition to see who spends the most, but it is something we are tracking. And so, for me, once Kevin Gausman signed last night, there was a little bit of a pivot psychologically to Max Scherzer, but it became evident as the night went on last night that the Mets, under their new-ish owner, Steve Cohen, were just not going to be denied, and they were going to pay whatever it took to sign Max Scherzer. So he gets a 3-year deal at $130 million, so $43.3 million per season. It includes an opt-out after the second year, and it's a record for average annual value by a lot. The previous record was $36 million, and this is $43.3. He's 37 years old. So as much as I like Max Scherzer, he couldn't have done any better, really. And probably he probably told the Mets they had to blow him away in order to lure him from who knows who else was in the hunt for him at a serious clip, or what I'm trying to say. Who else was seriously involved? I'm pretty sure the Giants were among them, but they weren't going to be a team that just got into a bidding war and starts offering him $50 million a season. So that's the reality of it. And so coming up in a minute, we're going to talk about where do things stand? What are the Giants going to do? What's going on with Alex Wood? We do have an update there, and so much more to get into. I want to get us set for... Oh, you know what? There's a arbitration update about Mike Yastrzemski, so we'll talk about that as well and more. So stay tuned for that. But first, does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friends log in for the good stuff. I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love, but without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirectTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again, and the best part is that there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirectTV Stream. You can learn more at DirectTV.com. That's DirectTV.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. All right, here we go. We're going to talk more about the frenzy going on right now in Major League Baseball. I'm refreshing my Twitter as we speak just to get caught up and make sure I don't miss something. Probably by the time you're listening to this, something major in the sport will have happened, and I won't be talking about it because it will have happened after I'm recording this. But let's talk about Alex Wood for a second, because we do have an update as of a few minutes ago. Alex Pavlovich of NBC Sports Bay Area, of course, tweeting out that he hears Alex Wood is getting his physical today, so that deal should be finalized soon. Jeff Passan reported last week it's a 2-year contract, which would give the Giants 3 starters locked in for the next 2 seasons. So that's a relief, right? Just to know that I've been wondering when that was going to get finalized for a while now. And, it'll be nice for that to be set in stone, because then they would have Logan Webb, of course, Anthony DeSclafani, and Alex Wood in place. But I know a lot of people are thinking, we wanted Kevin Gausman, we wanted Max Scherzer, we wanted Justin Verlander, Noah Syndergaard. A lot of quality starting pitchers. John Gray, I don't think I even mentioned, he signed with the Texas Rangers. And we're also getting reports today that the Rangers may be serious suitors for Corey Seager, and that Corey Seager may sign a new deal today. And so there's obviously just so much going on here. And where does it leave the Giants, and what are they going to do? So we've been assuming all along that the Alex Wood deal would get finalized. There's also been a lot of reports, of course, about Alex Cobb, but we haven't seen anything about him, finalizing a deal with the Giants. So we'll see. I wouldn't be shocked if that does happen. And I've said repeatedly, I would love the position the Giants would be in if they did secure Wood and Cobb. They would have 4 solid starting pitchers and a low payroll, meaning they could pivot any number of directions to some of the top talent that's available if they wanted to. Now, the thing is, they would potentially not have many elite starting pitchers to choose from. Kevin Gausman off the board, Verlander, like I said, off the board. And so the remaining top starters, depending, not in a particular order, but Robbie Ray, Marcus Stroman, Clayton Kershaw, those are kind of the top 3 remaining. Carlos Rodon, depending on if you believe in his health. I mean, we would have to see the medicals. The medical staff would have to see the medicals to determine if he's healthy. The fact that the White Sox didn't give him a qualifying offer is a red flag to me. And Clayton Kershaw, same deal. The Dodgers didn't give him a qualifying offer. So really, it's probably Robbie Ray and Marcus Stroman, and then question marks with Rodon and Kershaw. So Robbie Ray has the qualifying offer attached to him. The predicted contract is probably similar to what Kevin Gausman just got, upwards of $100 million, around 20, 25 million per season. And Marcus Stroman, it depends. Different sources kind of go in pretty severely different directions with Marcus Stroman, but those are just the guys who remain at the top of the starting pitcher market. So there has been a significant drop-off when we've lost so many big names. But on the position player side, almost none of the top players have signed. Carlos Correa, Corey Seager, Freddie Freeman, and in the outfield, Nick Castellanos, Seiya Suzuki, Michael Conforto, and Chris Taylor and Chris Bryant. All of those guys remain at large and can be signed. And so the Giants, if they so desire, could pivot to any one of these guys and wait for the deal that suits them best, to me, if they have these other starters locked up. And another factor that we don't talk about enough is trades. They could always make a trade for starting pitching, and there are some good ones available. The Reds are shopping Sonny Gray as an example. Vanderbilt guy. The Giants have Mike Yastrzemski, Kurt Casale from Vanderbilt, and I don't know if they have any others. They may, but I think Sonny Gray, 2-year contract, club option on the second year, nice reasonable salary, could be a target for the Giants. And so there's a lot of it's a frenzy right now, and I think that the Giants are not going to get swept up and make an emotional decision and overpay for players. I think that they are really methodical, and it doesn't always come down to who spends the most money. And what the other thing I want to say is that the offseason doesn't end in late November. In fact, this is a crazy amount of activity relative to normal off seasons, and it's being driven by this upcoming potential lockout in just a few days, actually on Wednesday night. So we're getting close here, but first of all, we don't know what the Giants are ultimately going to spend. There's a lot of good players remaining, and the Giants have a lot of money that they could spend. Secondly, you don't win the World Series based on how much money you spend in the offseason. Remember, the Padres far and away won the offseason last year, and look where it got them. They finished below 500, just a massive underperformance. And the Giants, nobody considered them the winners of the offseason, and they won 107 games. And so I get it. People want the activity. They want the hugest names, the biggest names in the sport, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, there are plenty of teams that don't go down that road and spend on the big brand name players, and those teams can have success without doing that. And so that's like a fact, but also I'm saying we don't know what the Giants are going to do. And so I'm sure most of you are not panicking, but there are people out there who are kind of freaking out about what's going on. And I just would urge patience, and also the fact I've had some questions like, why aren't the Giants rumored to be interested in some of these guys? Well, the Giants are notoriously a team that doesn't leak information. Like, how do all these reporters find out that this is what team is interested in, this is what they're saying, and this is what the agent is saying? It's because someone in the organization is talking to reporters. The Giants, under this front office and the last one, notoriously aren't a team that leaks information like that. And so when they've made some signings, it's completely come out of the blue. And there are plenty of teams like that. And like the Mets, all of a sudden signing Starling Marte, Mark Canha, and Eduardo Escobar. No one really, there was no rumors about that. It just happened all of a sudden. And so we just don't know, and we have to wait until these deals come down in order to figure out what's going on. And one more thing I want to say about all this is that the reason there's so much activity on Sunday and potentially today, which I expect on Monday, is because teams have determined that this is just about the cutoff that they would want to agree to terms with players, because there's a lot of logistics that have to get done in order to finalize a deal, like, for example, a physical and the finite details of the paperwork. And so they don't want to be pushing up against a potential lockout when they wouldn't be able to finalize those deals if it pushes past Wednesday at 11:59 Eastern time, because the league plans to lock out the players at midnight on Thursday morning, a minute after, Wednesday at 11:59 Eastern. And so I would expect to just continue to see a frenzy of activity. We've had a lot of reporters citing kind of major league sources that they think that today, I think it was Jeff Passan said today is going to be, quote, bananas, and that was a source telling him that. And we've seen other reporters saying the same thing. And so it's a lot of fun, right? And I think the Giants, I would put a little bit of money on them making an additional move besides just signing Alex Wood. I think Alex Wood looks like it's going to happen. Alex Cobb is probably the next guy that I would bet on them probably, potentially, maybe, possibly hammering out a deal with. But then again, we just don't know any additional names that might come into play, and that's okay. And this potential lockout is not a hard deadline. The offseason will go on whenever transactions become unfrozen. All of the players who don't sign between now and Wednesday night will remain free agents. And so we want instant gratification, but a lot of offseason remains and a lot of good players remain available. The one thing is that the starting pitcher market has, in fact, thinned out a lot. And so it remains to be seen if the Giants are actually going to go after any of the top remaining free agent starting pitchers. So coming up next, I do want to talk about that Mike Yastrzemski arbitration thing. It's a big deal for Mike Yastrzemski. And I also just want to look at some of the numbers with the free agents. I'm saying that so many of the top starters have signed. Let's talk about what percentage of those top starters have signed, how much above the expected contracts the league is getting, and specifically starting pitchers. We'll break it down by position: starters, position players, and relievers. At Built.com, you can get at least 20% off everything delicious and healthy. That's 20% off site-wide. And even bigger discounts on Built Boost, Broth, and Built Swag. This is all for Cyber Monday. A brand new Built Bar flavor has landed just in time for Cyber Monday, Caramel Almond Delight, and it delivers everything it promises. Caramelized chocolate, check. Almonds, check. Delightful, double check. Be sure to get yours before they're gone. Just 150 calories and 17 grams of protein. 'Tis the season to save and give your taste buds the gift of Built Bar. I can personally vouch for the fact that these Built Bars are delicious and healthy, and that's so important to me. I wouldn't be eating a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, super high in sugar, but these manage to achieve that great taste and come in with a healthy profile. Get to Built.com for these incredible tasting new bars and 20% off everything in the store. Head to Built.com, enter code LOCKED20 before it's too late. All right, here we go. We're going to talk about this Mike Yastrzemski thing and also just run through some of the numbers because I have looked at what the expected contracts are for each of the players who appeared in at least one top 50 list by MLB Trade Rumors, ESPN, and Fangraphs. And so I averaged all of those numbers, and then we can compare it to what players are actually getting. And the market just remains super inflated, and the position player side has caught up to the pitcher side, starting pitcher side, in that actually position players are now, on average, getting more total money even than pitchers in terms of the actual number being a higher percentage above the expected number. But first, let's talk about Mike Yastrzemski for a second. There was a question as to whether or not he was going to be Super 2 eligible, a Super 2 player. And I think Super 2 is kind of a little bit of a confusing thing, but the simplest way to put it is that Mike Yastrzemski gets 4 years of arbitration instead of 3 because he does qualify as a Super 2 player. It's actually kind of simple. It's the top 22% of players in terms of service time who have between 2 and 3 years of Major League service. And so there's always a cutoff date after which point those players are Super 2s and they get to reach arbitration that offseason as opposed to the following offseason for anyone who misses the cutoff. So Mike Yastrzemski was 12 days ahead of the cutoff, or past the cutoff, or ahead. He is a Super 2. He had more than enough service time by 12 days to achieve this status. And why this matters for him is because he reaches arbitration when otherwise he could have been paid retained for the league minimum salary, which I don't know how the collective bargaining agreement, a new one, may change what the minimum salary is and if it would apply to players immediately. It probably would. So all of this is up in the air. Like, we could see fundamental changes to everything and it could change all this. But as it is now, Yastrzemski was only going to be eligible to make about $600,000 or so, which is what he made last year. But now he's projected to earn about $3 million through arbitration. And so it's just really good news for Yastrzemski, and I'm very happy for him because as an older player, like getting his opportunity at an older age, it really works to his disadvantage because he was only going to be eligible to start making money as he got into even more of an older age. Whereas if he was doing what he's done in his career and he was like 24, he would have a very promising financial future ahead of him. But, as it was, he was only making roughly the league minimum. And so now he's probably the Giants are not going to non-tender Mike Yastrzemski. It would be shocking if they did. And so that deadline is actually tomorrow, which, by the way, that got moved up because of the upcoming expiration of the CBA. And so tomorrow we're going to know if, Mike Yastrzemski gets tendered or non-tendered. I don't expect him to be non-tendered. I don't expect any Giants except maybe John Brebbia to be non-tendered. They have 7 arbitration eligible players. But anyway, if they tender him a contract, which I fully expect, then he'll probably end up making roughly $3 million. And they could agree to a salary tomorrow. The Giants have a history of agreeing to deals with their arbitration eligible players on the date of the tender deadline to avoid arbitration. The one exception has been Donovan Solano. They did go to an arbitration hearing and Solano lost his case. But anyway, it's just really good news for Yastrzemski, so I wanted to point that out. Lastly, I just want to talk about the total numbers really quick. Overall, players have made 25% more guaranteed money than was predicted by averaging those 3 sources I mentioned earlier. Starting pitchers have made 24% more overall, and now position players 27% more overall. And for position players, it's all come from years. the average annual value is almost identical. 16.5 million predicted, 16.6 million actual. But those players, those 6 starters, have received 20 guaranteed years versus a predicted 15.67. So that's 28% more years. And for starting pitchers, it's similar. It's mostly coming from years. They've received 29 years out of a predicted 24.67, and their average annual value has been 18 million compared to a predicted 16.6. And so we're just continuing to see inflated prices. The Giants, at their deals for Belt and DeSclafani and what it looks like Wood's deal is going to be, they've been more market value. So they've, I don't want to say done better, but they've gotten guys for fairer deals than the rest of the league is signing other players. But it matters how much of an impact the player is going to make. Like, it's not a linear thing. I think the top tier players, as we saw with Scherzer, are going to get much more than was predicted, at least under these market conditions. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Coming up tomorrow, we'll talk about any and all moves that happen today. And I expect we'll be talking about an Alex Wood signing and much more. So once again, this is a daily show, Monday through Friday. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, that follow button, whatever it is, and be sure to come back as we do these shows every single weekday. Really hope you enjoyed this one today. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. You are now Locked On Giants.